Okay, thanks for coming. We are gonna make you suffer for 40 minutes. Well, let's just start here. We're gonna be talking about the OneGlass console and some of the cool stuff you can do with your PowerShell scripts and OneGlass. So before we start, who are we? So the first one, Mr. Troll. He used it to drive nice cars, now he drives American cars, and that's fine. And we have his Twitter right there. Then we have me. I still drive nice cars, nothing American. And my Twitter is right there. And then we have Mr. Thomas right here. You know him, right?
Maybe not everybody knows me. I don't know.
Yeah, they know you. Your GPU stuff. Yeah. Not that I care about GPU, but that's fine. All good. Okay, so if you need to message us, you have the Twitter handle right there. That's probably the quickest and easiest. So before you ask, let's take a look, because I know you're going to ask. So first of all, what is the problem? And what do we solve? So there has to be a problem, so we can solve a problem. So the BYOC, what is the BYOC? What is C?
Car.
Car? Yeah, that's what my wife tells me every time I go home. I buy something new, she's like, oh, you bought a new car? And I'm like, kind of. Then I hide it. Okay, so the C is actually, it's console. This is a trend that started with Citrix, if you remember that. So for every product they acquired or released, they would always build a separate console instead of integrating the consoles. Like very good thinking. So they ended up with like 1 million consoles, and then other vendors, they did the same thing. So now the problem is we have different consoles for different products, and as I said, with some vendors we even have different consoles for their only stuff. So it's pretty good. So if you used Citrix in the past, you know what I'm talking about. So that's a problem. And when you get into a typical environment, it's pretty tough to deploy a one vendor environment. If you have a Citrix solution or a VMware solution, chances are that you have other vendors in. For example, printing, or before acquisitions, like lots of people had a Citrix environment, and then they were using Unidesk for something, and then they were using a Northscale for something else, and printing, they were using TriStrat or Uniprint or whatever it was. The bottom line is, it was a multi-vendor solution. And if it was virtual, like how many here, that's a good question actually. I like a good question. So how many Citrix, admins or people running Citrix here? Well, let's see, how many? Lots. Okay, now how many of these lots of Citrix customers are actually running Zen Server? You see?
Ask in production.
Yeah, I don't mean at home or something.
I should have
So how many
put it on the rules, no Zen server.
And how many in production that never crashes? You see, just
How many of those servers are restarted? How many of those servers are patched? How many of those servers have updated network drivers? And then you have no hands.
How many, because if you update Zen Server, then it crashes. So probably never updated Zen Server. That's why it's not crashing.
Actually, this was a good point, Alex.
Yes.
Yeah, so Alex gets some money. Yeah, if you have a good point, you're going to get a money. I forgot to tell you that.
Now I get money for getting...
Yeah, to keep people awake so we don't fall asleep, I actually brought some Danish candy with me, some really good pipes, and they're not to smoke.
Okay, the definition of good candy is, it's kind of odd, but if it's like the Dutch candy, I have nothing against Dutch people, but I stopped at a Dutch grocery store a couple of weeks ago, and there was this licorice candy, and it was written something in Dutch, and I didn't use Dutch.
Thank you. Here.
So I bought the damn thing, and man, it was horrible. So I have no idea how you guys eat that shit, but it's unbelievable.
Why give it out free?
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably the same as the Danish one. Probably even worse than the Dutch one. Okay, so the typical environment is, as I said, several vendors, and that poses a problem, because you end up with several consoles. If you are Citrix running on VMware, you have a console for VMware. If it's Hyper-V, you have something else for Hyper-V, and keeps getting worse as you add. Oh yeah, exactly. Different versions of the same product. So it's a nightmare to manage. So then you think, okay, well, we can automate a lot of this stuff that I manage through consoles. And yes, that's true. But that creates another problem. If you build it yourself, it takes time, right? It's something you can pull out of your brain in a weekend, for example.
Yeah, but
And the other problem is when you build something to automate a particular task, that ties you to a particular vendor. So that's the other problem. So how many of you use the scripts to automate, I don't know, VM creation under VMware? Many. Now, how many of these scripts you can just point to a Hyper-V environment and run the same script and it will automate Hyper-V? So that's the problem. It gets tied to a particular environment. And that's no good, because sometimes you may be dealing with several different environments. What means you are going to have to build something for each different vendor.
It can tie you to the same version as well.
Yeah, exactly. What is even worse, thanks to great developers, that's what happens. So that's the problem. The solution is very simple. Well, the goal with OneGlass was to build something that can build and manage environments regardless of what is behind. So if it's Hyper-V, or if it's a ESX, or even the best of all Zen server, you have a single thing that can talk to all of them and does this exact same thing the same way over and over again. So if I'm creating a VM, I don't care what is behind it. I just say create me a VM, for example, or build me a Citrix environment, or build me an RDS environment. So that's the nice thing. And we broke it down into 4 different modules. So you can get whatever module you want, like hypervisors to manage your hypervisors, EUC to build and manage EUC environment VDI RDS. Then there's the PowerShell module, that what we're going to mainly take a look during this session, to manage your scripts. And then we have the AD module. That is just basic AD stuff, so you don't leave the console to do, like to create a user or check a group with, simple stuff. And the PowerShell module, I'll pass to Christian, so he's gonna give you a deeper explanation.
So hi. The biggest question and problem for me is always, I have tons of PowerShell scripts, and it's very hard to share it to my colleagues who are technically very next to me. I don't know if you have the same experience. Who has lots of PowerShell scripts and share it with colleagues? Is it easy?
Yeah.
Yeah? If you have a lot of parameters and stuff like that, so to explain them how to use it, and so, do you think it's easy?
Just
And how about end users?
Just
End users as well?
end users and scripts don't go together.
Yeah, but some functions, maybe it would make sense to give the user a chance to execute something without knowing what is behind. When I typical customer side, most of the time the typical administrators are not very deep into PowerShell, and they are used to click and point with the mouse, and give them a PowerShell script somehow scares them. Sometimes it's like, ooh, what the hell? And this is why we said, okay, we try something else. We also have a kind of command orchestrator. It means we use virtual command names to translate to different technologies. For example, get VM. we may get underlying VM, and this figures out what technology I'm being executed or I run against it. Is it VMware? I load the VMware modules and get the VMware command. If it is Hyper-V, depends on which version it is, Xen server, and so on. And it translates into the correct technology and executes this action. And with this virtual command names, you can do almost anything. So you can define whatever you want behind it. With the RoboGUI, this is what we show now, that you can import scripts and get the parameters and the stuff visualized, that anyone else can use it properly. And the main secret behind the whole thing is that it is a separator between the technology and the data. Because when you want to create, for example, a new VM, the main data is always the same. How many CPUs, how much RAM, hard disk size, and so on. But what is different is the underlying code to actually create the VM on a different technology, even on Azure, on AWS. So, but you always know, I need a VM, I need RAM, CPU, and stuff. Network, for example, VLAN, and so on. And this is a separator between the data. Oh, pricing for it now, okay.
People may, yes.
Okay, yeah. With base license, it's $4.99, where you get the AD for free and some other things what you can use. Then it's object-based. If you want to manage an hypervisor, it's $199. EUC, RDS, VDI, Citrix management is per host, €39, or VDI 2. And as a nice example for if you have a small tenant farm management service and stuff, it says $2,449. But again, we show you something what we, for example, can do in terms of agnostic. I mean, we can also manage other things with it. For example, migration from one technology to another technology. What I show now is a little video where I translate XenApp 6.5 application publishing into an RDS file. Assuming that the servers are installed the same way without Citrix layer, for example. Because this is what you can do. Anything else to say?
Yeah, just the video, like, again, it's just an example on 6.5 okay, now it's all good. So it's just an example from 6.5 to RDS, but it's both ways. So it's really anything to anything. So it could be XenApp, Zen Desktop, XenApp 6, XenApp 7, RDS 2012, 2016, stuff that we are working now, Parallels, and VMware Horizon. So it doesn't matter really what it's there, and from where to where you want to go. So you can go anything to anything. So you're going to see here on the video, like I have, we are pointing to a XenApp farm. You see all the applications published. So just some information about the application. So now you're just basically pointing to your RDS collection. And you enter the broker there, so it basically retrieves everything from the Citrix environment and dumps directly into the RDS environment. And all the resources are migrated, like in one shot.
So this is a good example for migration. I see actually OneGlass is good for a lot of customers I work with is when they have multiple environments. So multiple setup environments. At the same time they have multiple RDS farms. And they're going in from one console to another one. And if you have different geos in the US and Europe and in APAC that do exist, many different customers where it's actually a nightmare. One guy managing it at all, that's something I see. And he's not a PowerShell guy. Then they have a typical another guy who's a PowerShell guy, but there's big team that doesn't work with PowerShell. And then suddenly you are bottlenecking your infrastructure on one guy. What about the documentation? What does the script do, and so on? And that's actually what OneGlass can do. It can extract the very complicated PowerShell and then GUI it, which makes for other people, including myself, understanding what is happening inside the script in complicated situations.
Yeah, and for example, in this case, you can save your publishing settings to a binary file, can pass this to someone else and say, okay, on Sunday night you have to reapply or load the whole file, you can prepare everything, give it to your system, to whatever it is, and say, this is free, finished, load it, run it, job done. You can even make a schedule out of it. And as I say, with this separator, what you see here, on the technology, this decides in the end what PowerShell code is being used. But the data, command line, icon, work directory, sort files, and so on, is always the same. Doesn't matter what technology it is. So this makes it easy to translate. You can save it as a backup if you want. You can save it from one farm to another farm, like Thomas said, or from one environment to another environment. And you can migrate to have the same look and feel on all farms and on all technologies if you want. So the person who is actually executing it doesn't have to know what technology is in the background. You simply don't have to care. If we are ready to implement PowerShell, for example, or Horizon, there will be another drop-down list here. Entry, that's it. Simple. The PowerShell code in the back is a bit more complicated, but that's it. And as it is available and open, you also have a chance to extend this PowerShell scripts. They are not encrypted or something like that. This makes it easy for you to make your own stuff on top.
And again, it's the other scenario is not only migration. Like in my case, for example, I like to test different technologies running the exact same thing. So being able to export something from a particular technology or vendor and then import it back to another type of environment completely different allows me to do side-by-side comparisons with the exact same published resources between all these different products. So fairly easy to go from one to the other. So now the question becomes, what are the pain points? And that's a question for you guys. When dealing with a PowerShell, for example, do you see any pain points with PowerShell for you particularly? Some right there? Helping with some money?
The fact that it's adding new functionality and the thing you want is always in the version you haven't got.
Can you repeat it? I couldn't
So
hear.
basically you see nice functionality in PowerShell version 5, but it's not available in 3, which you have deployed across your estate.
Yeah, the fact that they keep adding to the functionality of PowerShell, but the version you have installed across your estate is never the version you need. It's always the next one.
So would it help that you can push out the installation of the new PowerShell module to your clients and servers? To make
Sorry,
it,
say again?
would it help you to push out your PowerShell versions throughout your enterprise?
It's the repercussions of doing that worry us. So I've got 80,000 desktops and I changed my PowerShell version. What stops working?
80,000 desktops.
And another pain point is if you're dealing with certificates. So if you have designed your PowerShell for security reasons, to handle the certificate stuff is really hard. So it's another pain point. If you're dealing with security, you all know this, and it could be a really pain.
Anything else?
People are just getting started with PowerShell and don't realize how...
No, they're finished with it. They're finished with it.
Sorry.
What I said was people are just starting out with PowerShell, like your colleagues who don't realize yet the amount of damage they can cause really easily, way faster and more efficiently than before.
But at least you don't see it.
I've been on a trip with him in Jordan. Really nice friends. A question I have is why, I mean, is it necessary to restrict yourself to PowerShell? Because, some vendors are notoriously slow at implementing any kind of decent API, naming their name scripts. Could you be like the bridge between, this multi-vendor
single pane of glass and provide a REST API for all this kind of stuff, so you can actually pull it from any technology, not just PowerShell.
Yes, we can. So actually, it's in the queue to provide this kind of support as well.
Yeah, it's in the queue. Because even with Azure and the stuff, you need this REST API as well. So the question is always how to translate these whole things. So on the one side, you have your environment, what maybe get some information out of WMI, yeah, or from group policies or whatever, and then push it to Azure stuff with REST and internally into PowerShell to do something. That's always the question how to translate the whole thing. But it is in the queue. That was cool. Yeah?
Can you make it faster?
What?
Can you make it faster?
PowerShell faster?
Yeah, because it's slow. It's slow as shit.
Depends. Sometimes how intelligent you write your scripts, you know?
If I do it in VB script, it's like 0.2 of a second. If I do it in PowerShell, after it's loaded in PowerShell, 4 seconds later, it takes 0.2 of a second. So
it depends. Yeah.
So just on that point, are you using run spaces or anything in the background to parallelize the workload?
All of this, it depends what you do. If you do a single action like start a VM, we do not. If you run multiple things on multiple machines at the same time, yes. But sometimes the workflow, it depends what you want to do. The workflow is better than workspaces and so on. It really depends what action you do. The good thing is you can, and this is what we then show, you can import your own PowerShell scripts and use them, and whatever magic you do in these PowerShell scripts, you do on your own.
And another thing on the damage that Tom mentioned. The other thing that bothers me sometimes with PowerShell, it depends on, well, first of all, there are PowerShell scripts and PowerShell scripts, right? Because I've seen everything from very decent PowerShell scripts to, really shitty PowerShell scripts. When it's like really PowerShit and not PowerShell anymore. You look at the damn thing and you're like, man, who wrote this?
Are you talking about your tools?
Yes, exactly. I'm talking about my own shit, But that's the first thing. And the second thing that I hate in many ways is, okay, it's cool to have a script that can do a lot of stuff, but some of the scripts, seriously, like they pass like 1,000 parameters that you have to type. And then the damage that can cause is sometimes you may be passing something that is wrong, but it's right from like a naming resolution perspective. So you point to the wrong environment, to the wrong broker or whatever it is, and then by the time you press an enter, well, it's too late. Or, in a good scenario, you type it, 1,000 different things, and then one you misspelled, and you press an enter, and then you're like, fuck. Then you have to go back with the, it's horrible. So that's one of my problems with PowerShell in general. It's the fact that some people really abuse how many parameters should be passed on a normal script. So that, for me, it's a big problem. Do you like typing 1,000 parameters without being able to review what you typed? It's really good. So Eugene has a question.
Yeah, so I really like the what if parameter in PowerShell, wherever it is supported. The problem is it's not supported everywhere, right? So not everyone actually implements it. In the commandments where it's actually implemented, I think it's one of the most fantastic ideas ever. To be able to take a command, especially something that affects a massive amount of targets, put in a what if parameter and see what it would return if it actually ran. So I guess an idea or something, I don't know if you're already supporting that, if you'll be able to somehow add on top of the solution a what if functionality for commanders that do not support it, that would be fantastic.
It's a very good idea. Yeah. Very good idea.
So the other trend in PowerShell is the sort of desired state stuff. Are you doing anything to sort of like build up desired state for environments where people are migrating their older stuff, which was incremental into desired state?
Yeah, but it's personally, I must say, I'm not a really fan of this thing because it's a hell of a lot of work. I think it's easier to get.
Cuts down your parameters, man.
to this point, yeah. Okay, yeah. So we go forward. Any pain point from yourself, or is it must be something better? I have one more, for example. Because when you have the same module, for example, remote desktop or something like that, the parameters are different on a Windows 10 machine as the same module, the same commandlet on a Windows Server 2016. I was talking with Jeffrey Snover a couple of weeks before. I said, what? I said, oh, must be a mistake. So no, I think it's on purpose to make us crazy about it. I don't know if you have the same experience. It's slightly different parameter sets or whatever. It's just nuts. But if you type it, if you have it in a script, it's really bad.
What was his answer?
So everybody's experts in PowerShell in here. nobody likes PowerShell.
The ISC is also a problem.
Yeah.
A very quick question on point. When I'm creating a PowerShell script, I'm of course looking around the communities. Has someone done something similar before? And I find that there are even many sites presenting collections of PowerShell scripts from community scripts, but there's not a real resource bringing everything together. For instance, for us at Microsoft, we have our own public communities where we pursue people to share what they're building, and we have you guys and everyone at Citrix doing something similar in different communities and so on and so on. But from my personal experience, there is no yet a unified resource to bring those collections all together.
PowerShell gallery?
PowerShell gallery?
Okay.
So there are many things with PowerShell related stuff. We can't do a lot.
You can do a lot, but you somehow, if you download 20, 30 scripts from PowerShell Gallery, if you look into it, the coding style is completely different. One works as a function, one works with the, let's say, with a huge set of parameters, one asking you in a little GUI coming up or in the thing for parameters, so it's totally different. This one, we want to make it a bit more lookalike, to say, to be better usable. I think we're making a short introduction, what we do, and then continue.
Actually, the GPU, something I'm also missing. If you take the GPU, it's actually half a V, where a lot of stuff is actually made in PowerShell. That's a good example on you could GUIfy something. With VMware, it's also can be a pain if you're doing Citrix on VMware and you're creating master builds. Remove the GPU, add the GPU, create collections, remove the GPU, add GPU. What if you could automate that extremely fast? So not a PowerShell guru can manage that.
So the challenge, for example.
I think everybody knows some of the scripts of CRod. Who knows them? Who likes them? Awesome tool. But when you run it from the command line, yeah, it looks sometimes like this. Yeah, it takes a while to read through and to bring everything. It works perfectly. I love this script, but as I don't want to type it everything, especially with these parameter sets, what you need often. So, and this is why we make it a bit different. For example. For example, this is how it looks like after we imported all of his PowerShell scripts, what you can download in a zip file. Yeah. And then, for example, you click on a script, you have the global parameters, what you can just type in, if it is a bool or a switch parameter, whatever it is. And then you have your parameter set. And when you click on it, bang, you see the different parameters you need to enter for this thing. Or if you go to SMTP, sorry, to type in the other parameters as well. And when you have a proper documentation, for example, for these parameters, if you mouse over, then you see the description, what we automatically read out of the script. So you can type in everything here, say execute, and the script is being executed with your parameter you defined here. Or script with debug logging, or you can edit the script directly It's just a value that is visible and mandatory, but not figured out. Then it opens the editor and it's pointing directly you to this script. You don't have to search for it. And you can edit, modify, whatever. And Helmut, where you? That's not here anymore. Sign the script with your own certificate if you want. But what happens if you downloaded it from the PowerShell gallery and someone else signed it? Do you just oversign it? Re-sign it? It's a good question. Depends on you. If you want to do it, if you want to do it, you can. There's nothing else. There's a code signing certificate in the background where you can specify a specific location with your password protected and job done. Then it's signed. Yeah, to see to show you how it looks like, for example, when you import something from the PowerShell gallery. Where is it? I just downloaded a couple of scripts from the PowerShell gallery, just done that, and put them to a single folder. And what you can do now is to say import a complete folder, point to that folder, and then should it be modified and copied to our OneGlass scripts directory, or what do you want to leave it where it is? Then you say import, and it goes to every single line and modifies the script header, because we need a different script header, just 10 lines of code, reads the parameters, prepares the parameters to be visible in OneGlass. In the end, it's an XML file which shows you everything. And going line by line, because everything we want to be logged. So if you have any command like write verbose, write error, write output, something like that, it will be translated into our internal command write log. So everything is being logged in a log file, every output. What you normally get on the screen, you then have it in your log file that you can directly access. So the scripts are being imported.
I need exercise.
Does that work with write host as well? So if somebody's written a puppy killing script with write host?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Isn't it a transcript? It's a transcript.
Regarding downloading scripts from the web, you see people who just download it and just execute it on production without having a look because they don't know PowerShell. We have some sort of checking where they say, hey, this one formats a C drive or whatever that just pops up. Are you sure?
No, not yet. But it could be a good point.
Yeah, just as a reminder, okay, might kill something.
Good idea.
Every single script out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
But as you can see, this is a... Sorry.
This is a Connect 06 Office 365 PowerShell script from the PowerShell gallery. It has a couple of parameter sets. Yeah. And if you click on it, you see what options you have. If you have to type in it, this is you can do it. Yeah, no problem. It's a wonderful script. We can't do the magic behind that. We go to all of these PowerShell scripts during the import process and check for something bad happening.
Not yet.
Can you save the input and make a task out of it?
Yes.
Could I at some point customize the GUI part and say, for these values I want my other admins only to have a choice, like a drop-down list or checkboxes at some point, so you can you're the guru, import this stuff and make it easier to use for other people without actually having to type?
Yes. Unless things here, yeah, we can hardly do that.
Yeah. This is possible because the parameters get commented out from the PowerShell script. So the parameters are being passed by OneGlass to the script as global variables. The input. Yeah? So you get just the variables. Very much to see. But for example, if you don't want this parameter SharePoint, for example, to be visible, yeah? Save this, and then it's gone. And we're working on it to make here a right-click, add and remove of these parameters, just in the GUI, that you don't have to go into the XML file. To make this happen, this is very easy. In a couple of days, we have it done. You can even, you can say, I want one more parameter here, or a different value in the drop-down list or so. Actually, this is quite easy. Right now, you go in here, copy something, make another drop-down list entry, say null or whatever you want, and then it's being available. You don't even have to touch the PowerShell script anymore. If you even have to have or need a new parameter, if you get a new one, you don't need to modify the param section and stuff. The PowerShell script itself needs to know what to do with this parameter, for sure, or with this variable, but you don't have to touch the whole thing in this case. And yeah, for example, this is a typical Office 365, how it looks like when you look into the code. It's a lot of effort, and oh, I think this one doesn't have idea. And when you qualify it with OneGlass, all of this gets commented out. You don't need it anymore.
Can you show it?
Yeah.
So,
this is the remaining parameter in your PowerShell script. That's all you need. And this little section here, what initializes the module, and within here we get all the parameters hand over to this PowerShell script. So this is what we add to the existing imported PowerShell script. These lines of code, this little region, and we read the whole thing here, see if there is a parameter documentation and so on, and then we comment out the complete param section. We leave it in, so we have a chance to look afterwards what was in before the import, if you made something wrong or it doesn't work as expected or so. So you don't lose anything. And for example, yeah, this here, for example, will be write log, this message. This will be exchanged to write.
So how many know about Project Honolulu from Microsoft? Actually, Chris has been working on integrating Project Honolulu in the suite. And yeah, want to share about what you're doing?
Yeah, so we download the whole thing, create a wildcard certificate if you need. You can import, download and install on the server, and then you can run it. If you need something more, what you want to add by yourself, different steps in the middle or something like that, you can easily do it by changing the steps here. This is the action pane what you see, yeah, on the right. All the steps here, you can manage, you can add, you can delete. If you say, oh, we don't have, for example, we don't need to create the wildcard certificate. Just remove this entry, save the file, refresh the configuration, it means reread all the configuration settings, and then the step is done. And so you can add your own functions, your own things, even to your own PowerShell scripts. You can say, I have different things to do, or yeah, you can easily add your own, let's say, execute buttons or whatever you want. You can remove it. It's completely free to modify what you want to do with the scripts. Or for example, with a virtual machine. If you want your colleague not to shut down a machine, just to reboot.
that's the end
another session.
Yeah. And then you can just remove this stop functionality, and it's simply not available. That's it. So, this is what we have seen. Right now we're dealing with multiple layers for common services and hypervisor consoles, and even any kind of PowerShell script what you want to share, manage, and whatever. And in the next couple of weeks, month, we're going to more into VMware, Horizon, Parallels, Acropolis, Google Cloud, and more into Honolulu. If you want to try and interact, the website is going live now. So we're really starting right now. And if you want to test it, just give us a note, information, and you can have it. Okay, thanks a lot.